Hi there, my name is Oliver Nagia, and in this training video of the IsoEvolve software, I'm going to be going through diagnostic codes and how to use them. So we'll start doing some basic stuff, and then we'll do some more advanced features around the diagnostic codes. So I'm going to log into the software, and firstly, you're going to see a dashboard, and essentially from there, I can use one of the options here, or we can navigate through the menus. But the first thing I do want to check, and this is quite important, but there's multiple modes on the IsoEvolve software, and you do want to make sure that you're on the healthcare practitioner mode. So if you click on the configuration button, just make sure that the account type is set to healthcare practitioner, because that's where you're going to get your diagnostic information. The other one that's really important is the concept of the billing plans. So you need to make sure that you have billing plans configured on your account. And the billing plan is essentially the types of consultations that you do with your patients. And that could be things like a 30-minute session, a 60-minute session, some assessments. And so it's really important that those are configured. I'm sure that would have been done with the team already. And if it hasn't, you're more than we're more than happy that you set up some time with the team so that you can go through it. And I'll cover how you do that later on in the video. But for now, just bear in mind you do need these billing plans. And what we're going to be looking at also is the line items for the billing plan. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to show you the basic functionality of how this works. So again, going back to the dashboard, I'm going to start with the client first, or the patient. And essentially on the patient itself, you have two different ways of editing the information. One is a very basic editing, and what I mean by basic, and definitely from a software point of view, it's information that is more address information, obviously the personal details kind of information, and we give you that option to do that there. But what I'm looking for is the advanced edit, and that's that blue button. And essentially there you're going to get multiple more options, and specifically related to healthcare, healthcare practitioners. And so you're going to have your diagnostic codes there, you're going to have your health insurance information, your referring healthcare practitioner, and road accident if you're dealing with that. So I'm going to go back to diagnostics, and you have placeholders for 5 diagnostic codes. That seems to be more than enough for most healthcare practitioners. If it's not, let us know and we can help you with that. But essentially on the diagnostic codes, you're going to select your diagnostic code, and again, typically this would only be one diagnostic code or ICD10 code. But for some practitioners, especially occupational therapists and physiotherapists, there could be multiple with that. Also want to say that from a diagnostic or ICD-10 code, that is set on a global level by the World Health Organization, I think it is. And so whatever is applicable in South Africa is going to be applicable in the UK as well as in the US. So, and we do give you the option to search for those. So if you're not really sure what that is, you can search for it. So in this case, for instance, if I put in F11, you can see that, relates to mental and behavioral disorders. And I can then go and, select the right one that I need from there. And then it's as simple as clicking the save button. So we're going to go through one full cycle in terms of how everything works in a perfect world scenario, and then we'll go through some advanced topics so around diagnostic codes. So I've got the client information sorted, and now the next thing is I just need to create an appointment. So again, appointment, invoice, health insurance claim. So on the appointment, I am going to create a new appointment. Again, with the appointments, you have 3 different options there: billable, non-billable, or personal. We're obviously going to select the billable appointment. And the billing plan, especially for this particular example, I want to show you, I'm going to use a more complicated one, and those are typically your occupational therapists and physiotherapists that have those. And when I say more complicated, I mean there's multiple line items on the billing plan or on the invoice, and there might be modifiers as well as NAPI codes around that. So and especially modifiers. I think that's a key one. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to set this date to be the 10th. And the status, I'm going to set it straight to completed. Remember the status, it might be covered in another training video, but essentially you have a few options there. If you set it to scheduled, it will send out the calendar invites as well as the reminders if you set it up like that. And if you set it to pending, it won't. But for me, I'm just going to go straight and mark it as completed. You'll only be able to invoice if the appointment is completed. So that is an important point to mention, and that's why I'm setting it to completed in this case. And I say save. So you see that's in my calendar now. And then to invoice that, it's as simple as just going to the billable section, clicking the invoice button, which is the purple button. And I'm going to say don't use system procedure rates. The system procedure rates are the rates as per each one of the health insurance companies. So the system would automatically pick that up. For instance, in South Africa, Discovery will have a certain set of rates that they pay per BHF code. That might be different to Bonitas or GEMS or any one of those. So I'm going to say no, because I wanted to use the rates or the cost from the actual billing plan. And the other thing around this is you have two options for the invoices as well. So one is you can just generate the invoice, or you can generate the invoice as well as the claim for the health insurance company. Now, the claim is not really your invoice, and I know it does get confusing on maybe some systems, but for us, definitely your invoice is your invoice. That's the legal document, but the claim is more the getting of the payment against that invoice. So it kind of looks the same. So, but it's just the terminology and the mindset, of actually getting it done. So on this, I'm going to say I want the invoice as well as the health insurance claim. And again, you get another option, which is, how do you want your health insurance claim? And again, in South Africa, if they refer to it as a paper-based claim, it means it's an email claim, and that's typically just the invoice. As opposed to the other option there, which is your EDI option. And that option basically takes the invoice and it converts it into a format that is accepted by the health insurance companies. And that's all done, within a few clicks of the buttons, but it's sending the data off directly to the health insurance company, and you get a response within a few seconds in terms of whether that claim is accepted or not. And so it's a really powerful feature, but again, there is a cost associated with that. It's a cost per claim, and also for email, there is no cost to that, so you can send as many as you want. There should be a training video on how the EDI related stuff works, and prepaid and all of that great stuff. But for this particular video, I'm not gonna spend too much of time on that. So let's assume it's going to be an email claim, and I'm going to save that. Yeah, as quick as you can think, it's invoiced, and then we then need to view the invoice or find the invoice, and that's typically in your financial data section. And the way the system is set up, and it should have been explained in the overview video, is that there's three main data sources or information or types of information for any system, and that's typically your client data, your product data, or your financial data. So if you're ever thinking of this and you're not sure where it is, just think of those three, and it should be easy to point you in the right direction. But you can also go back to the overview, and you can basically click on that button as well. And so in there, you can see the financial information as it is currently, which is the invoices, the payments, billing runs, and claims. And yeah, and that's our invoice there. That was for the 10th, and you can see at 2 o'clock and that amount. And then if I look at the invoice, the download button, and you'll see that's how the invoice looks. And what we're looking for, especially around this training video, is the diagnostic code there, and you can see it is as per the client config information, the F11.4, F12.2.1, and F14.1. So all well and good. If we just complete the story and go to the claims part of the story, you'll see that on the claims, the system has created a claim for you, an email claim. And this is a test system, so I should be able to just click on the submit button here. And what's gonna happen there is it's gonna send that invoice or that claim directly to the health insurance company. In this case, it was Discovery, so it'll send it straight to Discovery. This is a demo account, so it's obviously not going to send it to Discovery. It'll send it to me, but you'll get an idea of how that looks. And then there is another option there which asks you, is this a claim resubmission or not? And a resubmission is just, it's not the original one. Maybe you've made, or the health insurance company has requested a change from you, or you've made the change and you want to resubmit it to them. And that's quite important because the original claim goes to the one team, and the a resubmission can possibly go to another team. The software handles all of that complexity underneath, so you just have to tell the software either is it a resubmission or it's not, and automatically it will route it to the right the right email or the right team at the health insurance company. So in this case, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say save, and within a few seconds we should see a nice confirmation that the claim has been submitted, and the software will reflect that as well. While we're on this, is on your claims, the one way that you can handle this really confidently is like just to make sure that you can update the status for each one of the claims, and especially around or specifically around the email claims, because you're not going to get a response straight away. You have to look at your medical aid remittance, and then you're going to process those. If it was paid and you paid the invoice, automatically the claim will be marked as paid. But if you wanted to for whatever reason, update the status, you can do that as well, which is really nice to know. If you look at what that looks like, gonna look at that, and you'll see here's the claim, and this is typically what would have been sent to the medical aid. And I'm going to click on, and you can see here's the invoice that's attached, which is their version of the paper claim, and I can see the diagnostic code, and is correct, and it looks exactly like we just saw earlier. So all well and good with that one. Now I'm going to go through something slightly more advanced, and I think let's go back and go to step number 1. We spoke about the billing plan. So there might be cases, and again, this is dependent on your type of practice, and we normally find it with the physios and the OTs, where on a line item on the invoice, you possibly need to have a different ICD10 code to justify that treatment, to the health insurance company. So, and again, we're not going to go into the rules of this. The best way for anything coding related. Now, let me just show you the billing plan I'm talking about. So in this particular billing plan, you've got multiple line items, you've got a modifier. Now, how you configured this, the coding aspects, that you should either have gotten training from your respective board. So if it's a physio board or the OT board or the psychology board, in terms of how to do that. And if you're not sure, maybe the HPCSA. And if you're still not sure, we're more than happy to help you based on the experience that we have with other clients, and see what you might be struggling with and see how to basically code that for you. And but it's really important that you get the coding right. And once you have the coding right, the point I wanted to make with this is you can actually set the ICD10 code on a per line item on the billing plan. So let me show you how that works, because that's quite powerful. So if I click the edit button, again, I'm on the billing plan. I click the view components button, like this one, the purple one. Then on each one of those, I can go and edit that. So I'm going to edit the first one, and I can change the unit cost, I can change the discount, all of those. But what I'm interested in changing is the diagnostic code. So in this case, I'm going to do Z50.2, like so. and I'm going to say save. Now, what should happen if I go back there? It should hopefully be there. Yes, it is. So what should happen now is, now if I generate an invoice, the system is going to use the diagnostic codes for the billing plan rather than the client. It's going to override those. So let's see how that works. So essentially, same story. I'm going to go and I'm going to create an appointment. I'm going to select that billing plan that we just changed. I'm going to select the date to the 11th. Again, set this to completed, and I'm going to say save. So that's the appointment there. Let's generate the invoice. So again, here I'm going to select health insurance claim, and just to be different, I'm going to select EDI, and I'm going to say save. Again, done. Go to the financial data, click on the invoices. The one that I'm interested in is the 11th. Let's see what that invoice looks like. And there you can see. So for line item 1, which was that procedure 72501, it's actually picked the diagnostic codes from the billing plan component, and so should be happy with that. And then the same for the claim as well. So you won't be able to see that completely, but essentially I will do one more example with an email claim so you can actually see it more clearly. But this is the service date or the treatment date we're looking at, which is an important point. I should actually just mention that on the I'll come back to that just now, but on the what I'm talking about is the invoice date and the treatment date. It's quite important that you understand that from a terminology point of view. But here, so I'm looking at the 11th, and now I can just submit this. This is a test system, so it will reject, but it just takes a few seconds. And you should see a response from the switch. Yeah, you can see it's normally under 5 seconds, but under 10 seconds is something you can kind of expect. And then you can see a response, basically on that as well, like so. So the other thing I want to show you is that on the IsoEvolve software, again, we learned this with lots of learning experiences over the years, but you can actually create more than one claim per invoice. And I'm not sure if there's many other systems that do that, but essentially you see the invoice as a legal document, but the claim is just it's a payment instruction. And there could be multiple payment instructions for that. The client could pay, the medical aid could pay in this way or that way. And what we found is there's a particular case where the medical aids or the health insurance companies, especially in South Africa, do want both the paper-based claim, i.e. the email-based claim, as well as the EDI one. Or, if you used EDI, they still want the paper-based claim, which is more likely the scenario. And in that case, if I went back to the invoice and I wanted to, remember we created an EDI claim, if I want to create a paper-based claim or an email claim, all that I do is I click this blue button for create claim on the 11th, and I say yes, and I select email, and now click that. If I go back to the claims section, you can see there's 2 claims for the same invoice. So the invoice is 242. And you can see there's 2 claims there. One is for EDI and the other one is for email. The reason I want to show you this is that you can actually see the components. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to submit this claim. Again, I'm going to say resubmission. And all that I want to show you is that the invoice is different. So in terms of the diagnostic codes, and you can clearly see there. Z50.1, Z50.2, and Z50.3. So that's really important. And it completes the story. So we changed it on the billing plan component. It kind of filtered all the way down to the invoice and to the claim, and we're happy with that. There is one more advanced way that you can do this. And so let me show you how that works. So if I go back to the invoice, what I can do is I can also edit the invoice component. So the way I do that is I'm on the invoices and I click the edit button. So let's do that for the 11th as an example. And I click the edit button here. And you can see there's the diagnostic codes on that, like so. So what I can do is now I can go here and I can say it was Z50.1, but I actually want to make that Z40. And you can see Z40.8, these codes obviously are not very accurate. And yeah, it's not. Like so, Z30.0. I'm going to click save. So now I've edited it on the invoice. If I look at what that invoice looks at, the change is immediate. So if I look at what that invoice now looks like, it should have the updated diagnostic codes. So yeah, so that's another really good way that you can do that. Just remember that if you do have a claim already on it, you should just go and delete the claims and then just recreate it. So here, for instance, I could then go and just delete the claim for the 11s, like these ones, like so. And this one as well. So that's the 2 for the 11th. Just recreate the claim. Like so. And then it would have the updated, diagnostic codes for those line items as we defined. So that kind of completes that story. I did want to tell you just one thing, and I forgot to do it when I was actually doing the generation of the invoice, but let me just cover that quickly. So it's a new appointment. I'm going to do exactly the same thing just to show you this one aspect to it. And in this case, I'm going to make this the 12th, like so. Again, set it to completed. I didn't actually select a client. I do that sometimes. So just showing you as well, if you did make a mistake, it's quite easy to go and fix it. But now I do have a client. If you look at my calendar, it does look fine. And now if I invoice for that, what I forgot to mention is the invoice date. Now the invoice date can be different from the treatment date. It's really important that you understand that concept. It's pretty simple to understand, but your invoice date can be whatever date you want. I mean, it can be today's date, which might be like 1 month, after the actual treatment date or your appointment date. But what's important is that if you're submitting the claim to the health insurance company is going to look at the treatment date, your appointment date, not necessarily your invoice date. So it's really important that you do that. But the invoice date is important from the perspective of when do you submit it to them. And so ultimately it should be aligned. I mean, the invoice date can be the same as the treatment date, and you're submitting pretty much more or less on the same dates, and everything is happy. But I do want to mention that because that has created confusion with many clients over the years, and especially when they try to realize why are their payments so high on the 1 month as opposed to the other month. And the system doesn't really care what your treatment date is. It does care about what your invoice date is and what your payment dates are. So if those are aligned with your treatment dates, all perfect, it doesn't mind that. But if it's not, just something to bear in mind. I think that covered all of it around diagnostic codes, and I know, like once you get into it, it's it should be fine. For the majority of our clients, I would say probably 80 to 90% of clients, what I mentioned in terms of the basic setup, that should be more than sufficient. For the clients that do need a little bit more advanced up or features, or just to deal with the diagnostic codes in a little bit more of a granular method, then we can do it on a per billing plan component perspective, and more so from a invoice component perspective. But I would always recommend, and this is always what we say, is your calendar should be representative of how you're doing the billing. So I would always recommend try to change it on the billing plan itself. Even if you create a separate billing plan for that, so you know what that is, because then you can easily see pretty much what's going on, and what like how you have been billing, because the only way to do that, if you've updated it on the invoice component, is to be able to view the invoice itself and see pretty much what the diagnostic code looks like, and that's fine as well, right? Because maybe there's just a few exceptions, and that's perfectly fine. So hope you found this interesting and useful. As always, if you ever stuck with anything, you can send us a support email to info@kitron.com, or you can set up an appointment with the team, and they're more than happy to go through anything that you need to, even if it's from an understanding point of view. If we don't know the answer, we'll try to find it out for you, and we'll come back to you with that, even if it means that we need to follow up with the health insurance company and check up on that for you. So yeah, you're more than welcome to use that. There is no cost to that service. It's just what we provide as part of you being a client of the IsoEvolve or of Kitron. And yeah, the way to do that is using the link, which is kitron.com/book/appointment. Thank you so much. Hope you found that useful, and yeah, speak to you in the next video.